Good morning, everyone, and thank you, my sister, for leading us in that worship. And as we continue to worship at this time, we're going to be turning our Bibles to the book of Proverbs Chapter 5. Proverbs Chapter 5. Today is the 6th day of the month of July 2026. And we are gathered today to study God's word, to worship, to pray, to get encouraged, and to give ourselves that needed boost that we require, to start every day. And today is Monday, the first working day of the week. Yesterday was the first day of the week, but today is the first working day of the week. And there's so much that God has stored for us today. My desire, my ultimate desire, I know that not everyone can join this morning session. Not everybody can wake up before 5, or not everybody desires to even wake up before 5 every day to come and join this. But I also pray that for those who are not able to, that somehow they will be able to get these recordings, this message. And that's why I try to record as much as I can. And I also try to post them as much as I can also, so that wider audience will be able to get it. Definitely today, like every other day, we're going to be learning some, lessons. We began the book of Proverbs last week, and so far it's been great. We've looked at lessons from the book of Proverbs, which is the beginning of wisdom. We are told in chapter 1. By the time we enter chapter 2, we began learning the value of wisdom. What really is the value of this wisdom? A few days ago, we looked at how young men can guard their lives. That's when we looked at chapter 3. And of course, yesterday we looked at the security in wisdom. So today, we're going to be looking at a very practical aspects of wisdom today. Proverbs chapter 5. And today we advance, what I would say, into a more deeper parental discourse. Some of those discussions that parents find it very awkward to have with their children. And we're looking at sexuality, today. We're looking at sexuality today. We're going to be looking at self-control today. We're going to be, looking at immorality, adultery today. But the book of Proverbs does not back off from this. So we're going to move from this, from a way, a bit, if I want to call it, from this academic calling of this lady, I want to say Lady Liberty, Lady Wisdom, Lady Wisdom, calling us. We're going to move sharply towards what I call a tactical boundary. Okay, we're going to see how we can lay a tactical boundary wall for ourselves. So Proverbs chapter 5 is a chapter in the book of Proverbs that gives us, that gazes directly into this perversion of character. I want to call it this perversion of character. It also looks at our destiny. It looks also at our legacy. And it looks at it through the lens of absolute purity. I know as a church, we preach absolute purity. We teach purity. We encourage purity. And we say that the only law of purity is absolute purity, not purity with contamination. So what I'm going to do right now, I'm going to go ahead and read. It's a very short chapter, just from verse 1 to 23. I want us to pay attention even as I read. And I want you to imagine, visualize a father talking to his son, or a mother talking to a daughter, or parents addressing their children, or even you addressing people around you. I begin in verse 1. My son, pay attention to my wisdom. Turn your ears to my words of insight, that you may maintain discretion, and your lips may perverse or preserve knowledge. For the lips of the adulterous woman drips honey, and her speech is smoother than oil. But in the end, she is bitter as gall, sharp as a double-edged sword. Her feet go down to the dead. Her steps lead straight to the grave. She gives no thoughts to the way of life. Her path wander aimlessly, but she does not know it. Now then, my sons, listen to me. Do not turn aside from what I say. Keep to a path far from her. Do not go near the door of her house, lest you lose your honor to others and your dignity to the one who is cruel. Let strangers feast on your wealth, and your toil entice the house of another. At the end of your life, you will groan when your flesh and your body are spent. You will say, oh, how I hated discipline, how my heart spurned correction. I will not obey my teachers or turn my ears to my instruction. And I was soon in the serious trouble in the assembly of God's people. Drink water from your own cistern, running water from your own well. Should your spring overflow in the streets, your streams of water in public squares, let them be yours alone, never to be shared with strangers. May your fountain be blessed, and may you rejoice in the wife of your youth, a loving doe, a graceful deer. May her breast satisfy you always. May you ever be intoxicated with her love. Why, my son, be intoxicated with another man's wife? Why embrace the bosom of a wayward woman? For your ways are in full view of the Lord, and he examines all your path. The evil deeds of the wicked ensnares them. The cord of their sin holds them fast. For lack of discipline, they will die, led astray by their own great folly. Now, I want us to consider these words that this man is giving to his children, his sons. Now, before I dive into this, maybe I must have mentioned, we're going to be doing a bit of biblical interpretation also. Okay, for you to correctly interpret the word of God, not translate. Translation, is when you are taking a text from one language to another. You are translating it. But interpreting it is when you are saying what it means. And by the way, that is actually what people do. They are supposed to be called translators, but what they're actually doing is interpreting. So they'll tell you what they think that that you're saying. People who quote, who interpret in church, whether you are speaking in English and they are putting it in Yoruba language or in other language. What they are meant to do is to translate, to take it from one language and put it in another language. But what they end up doing most of the time is to interpret. And why do you have to interpret? Now, I'll let you know. And this is not directly focused on what we are going to be studying today. Now, the assumption is that every word in one language has a corresponding word in another language. Like, for example, if you say one in English, it will be ofu or otu in Igbo language, or okon, because they have counting system also. But what if you have words in one language that has no direct replica in another language? That's where you now do what they call transliteration, or you do what they call, that's why you now interpret. All right. My favorite example is, I took the campus student, hundreds of them, to Ibadan some years ago for a conference, and went to the highest point in Oyo State, and that place is Shakpati, Shakpati. That's what they call that place. And even the people in Ibadan, most of them don't even know that word Shakpati is actually a transliteration of another language. When I think it was the Baptist church. The Baptist church came there. They built a monastery there and everything, and they named it Shepherd's Hill. Shepherd's Hill. But unfortunately, there is no other corresponding word for that in Yoruba language. So they call it Oke Shapati, Shepherd's Hill. So it became Shapati. It's the same thing that we do with words like baptism, baptizo. So but there's no direct. Sometimes it becomes a sentence rather than a word. Now, as we study the book of Proverbs, we are going to be going into some realm of interpreting what the Bible is saying. Now, I'm saying this because some years ago, almost 30 years ago or thereabouts, there was a disciple. I met a disciple who tried to convince me that you can drink your urine as medicine. That you can drink your urine as medicine. And this, disciple, told me it's called urine therapy. Urine therapy. And I asked, what does that mean? I mean, for some of you who know me, I'm a science buff. I was supposed to be a scientist. I left science for arts. And I asked, what gave you that idea? This disciple showed me Proverbs Chapter 5. Showed me Proverbs Chapter 5, verse 15. What does it say? And I just read it. It said, drink water from your own cistern, running water from your own well. Now, of course, growing up, many of us grew up with where you have I'm trying to look for a very sane word. Many years ago, many of us grew up, and the toilet facility we had growing up, most Lagos, like 99.999% in Lagos, was the pit latrine, aka Shalanga. In my native language, it's called Otibiri. Very, very interesting. I remember by the time we moved to a flat in the 70s, we moved to a flat, we now had that flusher. And we began calling it water system. I'm sure most of you have used that word, water system. Actually, it's not system. That word there is cistern. It's a reservoir, a container, a tank, a holder. That is water holder, a cistern. Now, the Bible says, drink water from your own cistern, running water from your own well. Now, this sounds simple, but it needs interpretation. And that is where we are going to now go into the book of Proverbs to interpret what does this mean. It could mean it is a simple word, but what does this mean? So I want you to hold on to that. Apparently, I was able to tell this disciple, listen, I know what urine is. Urine is amino acid, poison actually. It is a waste product that your body, so why drink it? And this is how people can take Bible passages and harm themselves in many areas. Anyway, let us go back to Proverbs chapter 6. Chapter 5. Proverbs chapter 5 is a very raw description we have in the Bible. How we can see an uncompromised briefing. This is not something where you use words, no, just say it straight. It's an uncompromised briefing, from, let's say, a parent, from a father to his son, and it was regarding the deceptive economics of temptation. I'll call it the deceptive economics. Economics is all about buying and selling, right? We're going to look at what you buy, what you sell, what you take, the law of income and expenditure. We'll look at spiritual economics. What are you taking in? What are you giving out? So this beautiful chapter, it opens up by basically the word, by profiling. It began to profile the mechanics or the mechanism of attraction. How does attraction come? In the book of James, the Bible talks about how sin comes. Sin comes from what we desire. You already have a desire for that thing. Because you have a desire, it is easier for you to be tempted. You're not going to be tempted by something you don't desire, something you never tried before, something you hate, something you will not be tempted by, by that. But something that you like is easier for you to be tempted. So in the same way, Proverbs chapter 5 gives us that description of how attraction comes. Look at what he said. He said, for the lips of the immoral, sometimes they use the word adulterous, for the lips of the immoral woman drips honey, and her mouth is smoother than oil. Now, in interpretation, it's not saying that that woman has honey dripping now. So you know what it means. You know how the Yorubas will say, your mouth is sweet. Not that licking your mouth is sweet, but you can talk well. You are very convincing. So the Bible said that the lips of the immoral woman drips honey, and her mouth is smoother than oil. So in other words, temptation never introduces itself as, let's say, a crisis. Okay, if you see a crisis, you will not go. So every temptation that you face today, that you have faced in the past, that you will face in the future, they will never present themselves as a crisis. Rather, temptation will present itself as an elegant shortcut. It's a shortcut, but it will make you its elegance. Temptation is an escape, right? But it's going to present itself as a smooth escape. Temptation is actually compromise. You compromising on your value, but it's going to present itself as a comforting compromise. It's the same thing he's saying, but it's going to say it in a way that will sweep you away, that you will not think you are doing something wrong. So, of course, Solomon knows all this stuff. However, Solomon was very quick to let us strip away those sensory illusion. Your sense that you have. How do you perceive the world around you? You perceive it by your sight, so you can see, by your ears, what you hear, by what you can taste, what you can smell or perceive, your nose, what you can hear, what you can touch. That is how you are able to interact with the world around you. So you are tempted by what you can smell. Obey is otasoso, the Bible say. Otasoso. So you are tempted. Or look at what I'm hearing. What I'm hearing is smooth, or what I see. So those are the sensory illusion. So what Proverbs is doing, chapter 5, is to peel away. Let's remove the illusion of sight, illusion of hearing, illusion of touch, illusion of taste, and let us look at the long-term structural defect that's going to happen to you. Remove the illusion. Let's look at what you're going to pay. This market you are buying, or like my brother will say, this market that you are buying. You know how you go and find trouble. They will say, you don't buy markets. That's exactly what's happening here. So if you peel them away, you are going to see that what you are buying really is destruction. So the writer here, he knows that. Look at her ultimate trajectory. The ultimate something is found there in verse 4 to 5. What does he say? He said, but in the end, she is bitter as gall. When you think of gall, you think of gall bladder. Yoruba will call it ororo. That thing that will cut off when you kill chicken. I mean, we're taught when we're small. In fact, we're taught that if this thing breaks, the whole chicken has spoiled. That's what we're taught. The whole chicken is spoiled. So you are careful to cut out the gallbladder and bury it, throw it away. Whether in the chicken, whether in a goat, you remember, because that is where the bitterness is. The Bible said that it will, she ends up as bitter as gall, sharp as a double-edged sword. He said her feet goes down to death, her step leads straight to the grave. See, that is the conclusion of the matter. So when you peel away the temptation, you will not see the end, and it is the end that the Bible writer wants us to see. So the writer, forces every one of us here, all of us here who are trying to rebuild our lives, to rebuild our spirituality, all of us here to look past those temporary sweetness that you can get. The temporary sweetness of a lie, the temporary sweetness of a bribe, the temporary sweetness of deception. Let's look past it, of those compromised moments in our life, and let's begin to evaluate the catastrophic invoice that it's going to give to you. When you buy that market, it's going to give you, before you even buy it, gives you an invoice. There's a difference between an invoice and a receipt. All right. But look at even the invoice. Before you collect the receipt, look at the invoice. Evaluate the catastrophic invoice. And that is what arrives at the end of every draft. There are three things I want us to focus on today, even as I read through the book of Proverbs chapter 5. One of the things that you need to know from the beginning is that wisdom protects all of us from destructive choices. Wisdom is able to protect you from all destructive choices. And that's what Solomon was doing. Solomon was able to establish that protective capacity of wisdom. Wisdom is able to guide you. Look at what he says here in verse 1 and 2. He said, my son, pay attention to my wisdom. Those days we were taught wisdom by songs. Oh, I still remember those songs. I don't know if they still sing them. I don't know if that, but we're taught moral instruction. And one of the ways to pass those stories is through songs. One of the songs, I can't remember what it's about. Yeah, fetí sí ẹ̀kọ́ rẹ̀ kí wọ́n lè jẹ́ ọmọ rere lẹ́yìn ọ̀la tó ń bọ̀. All those stuff. Listen. He said, pay attention to my wisdom. Those days we're taught things like ọ̀lẹ alápá má ṣiṣẹ́. And you're going to see that in Proverbs. As we begin to read, you're going to see the description. Ọ̀lẹ alápá má ṣiṣẹ́. Ọ̀lẹ fàṣọ ìyàwó. You're going to see all those things. So today we need to take those things before it happens. As young disciples, we are taught to cut off sin at the temptation level. He said, my son, pay attention to my wisdom. Turn your ears to my words of insight. Why? That you may maintain discretion and your lips may preserve knowledge. You see, wisdom is not merely, like we've been saying from chapter 1, wisdom is not merely an asset for some intellectual people. I mean, I just participated in a debate, several debate competition in the past few weeks in a Toastmasters event. But also, it is not an intellectual debate. You need wisdom to debate someone. No, it's not that intellectual debate. Wisdom is your ultimate defense shield. It's not just for you to talk, to have sounding argument. In Greek society, it's called rhetorics. Rhetorics is how you speak. When a Greek man comes, there's a pattern that they speak very smooth. There's a way they use their word. And when Paul was teaching the churches, Paul said, I didn't come with such rhetorics. We were taught rhetorics in secondary school. When you go to a debate commission, you say, good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, the panel of judges, my accurate timekeeper, my co-debaters. Later, those are rhetorics, fine sounding words. But here, we're not talking about fine sounding words here. And that's why you see raw statements made here. It becomes your defensive shield against self-destruction when you go and do things that is going to, harm you tomorrow. So when your mind is saturated with the law of God, when your mind is saturated with kingdom, teachings, it's like when the air is saturated with moisture, what comes out, rain will fall. So when you saturate your mind, with the laws of the kingdom, what's going to happen? You're going to end up developing what I call a supernatural radar. Now, I love geography. I love, some of you already know when I speak, I love traveling. Nobody, but if you go to the flight deck of an airport, all that elevated structure they have, that's actually where the control tower is. And the control tower, they have this radar there, and things will be going around, and it will be spotting the plane by a dot. When it goes around. So when you begin to focus on the Bible, you learn the Bible, you to be able to develop your own spiritual radar. That radar will begin to detect any hidden hooks, any hidden inside attraction, any hidden bait. But if you don't even know the Bible, how will you know how to detect? So wisdom gives all of us that sobriety to begin to look at this, these ethical shortcuts that we have. Things present itself as something sweet, but you'll be able to analyze it. Yeah, this thing looks okay. And that's why we have forensic accountants. They go and look beyond. And that's why we have people, scientists, who carry out forensic examination. Even when somebody dies, they can dig to find out what really killed that person. You look at shortcuts. Those shortcuts, are they ethical? You look at your relationships. Those relationships, are they toxic? Are they relationships that's going to kill you? Or even, compromises that you have. Are there hidden compromises? That's when, before you sign a major deal, let's say you are buying a property, you are buying a business, they will say, go and give it to a lawyer. Lawyers are trained to look at what they call the fine lines. They don't tell you the risk boldly. They put it in fine lines. And that's why you have to look at those compromises there. And that's why you're able to now see, you're able to see either a corporate ruin or a personal ruin. The things that are going to come to you. How do you indemnify yourself? These things are attached to it before you even make your decision. So you have to learn all of those stuff. And that's why we study Proverbs. We want to be wise, so that when Satan is selling us that market, you're able to see. People today have gone to buy houses. It's in cheap, and it's a good location. They found out that the house was sinking. And before you know it, Lagos State government comes and puts a red mark. I mean, my neighborhood, down my neighborhood, you have them there. In Mende, that is the down. You see many houses there are tilted this way, and they are bringing them down one by one. But can you imagine you spent money in building that house? So today, let us affirm. Even let us stop and affirm this. I want all of us today to resolve to let wisdom, not the wisdom of the world, the wisdom of God, let it begin to act as your own internal guardrail. A guardrail is something that you put to prevent you from falling. When you're on a bridge, you see a guardrail. Today, just like criminals in our society, just like worthless people in our society, devil will come and steal your guardrail. You see, criminals today come and they go and cut those aluminium guardrails on the bridge to go and sell. They go and remove the iron to go and sell. And that's why even the government, if you're going to a Eko bridge today, I think it's a Cocoa bridge or Kakata bridge, they are replacing them with concrete. And let's see how they're going to come and steal that. People stole guardrail from here to Badagry, to Semen. They were aluminium guardrail, they stole them. Ibadan Expressway, they stole them away. Those things are to protect you. So today, let us resolve to let the wisdom of God to act as our own internal guardrail. We have to trust it, that it's going to protect your mind, it's going to protect your career, it's going to protect your family from any destructive choices. Proverbs will put guardrail for you. Secondly, I want us to pause a bit. I want you to pause and ask yourself a question. And I'm going to ask you the same question. Can you trace maybe any past moments in your life where you kind of, you skipped a standard of wisdom, where skipping that standard of wisdom led you directly to either emotional deficits, either a financial deficit, either a relational deficits? Think of a time in your life that by skipping a standard of wisdom, you're supposed to know you skip it, it ended putting you in deficit. Let's take a few seconds to think about that while I take a sip. Now, having done that, the second thing I want us to learn this morning is what you'll find. You'll find in the book of Genesis, in the story of young Joseph. I will read the story of Joseph. I will look at how Potiphar's wife tried so much to entice this young man. She tried. We don't know how many weeks or how many months or maybe how many years she tried to do that, but Joseph will not yield until he cornered Joseph in the room and nobody was there. He called Joseph in the room, and we saw what Joseph. Of course, he grabbed Joseph, and Joseph did what we normally do in secondary school. So he grabs you. You know how to remove your clothes. Let them have the clothes, and you run away. We're going to talk about radical distance. Let's look at how to create the law of radical distance. In other words, how you can remove your path from what is there. And I see that in verse 8. In that verse 8, the father, he begins to drop some very, very massive practical instructions. And this practical instruction is instruction of how do you escape a compromise. It says, keep to a path far from her or him. Not just the man, far from her or him. Do not go near the door of her house. Keep yourself far away. Don't even go near. Don't go near. I want you to observe, that the strategy for purity is not, let me negotiate. It's not negotiation. The strategy for purity is not, I'm strong, willpower. It's not willpower. It is actually geographical and systemic distance. I'm not going to stay around you. I'm not going to go to that place. I'm going to stay as far as I can. I'm going to run. So don't think about, let me negotiate. I can have my whip. I'm a disciple for 30 years, 40 years, 100. You do not stand at the doorstep of anybody who is of any weak area of temptation in your life, to now prove your spiritual superiority or whatever. So I know that this thing is bad, but I can stay here. That's what we're taught as young disciples. That story. I think it was Nietzsche that I introduced that story to us. I want to talk about sin and repentance. That I talk about who is a good driver, and they took 3 drivers to a test. Let me see how many of you can drive to this cliff and stop without falling through. The first one say, I can do it, and he stopped like a feet. Someone said, I can do better than that. Then that one said, I'm going to drive, and he stopped few inches. And third one said, I'm not a very good driver. Things like this, I don't try it at all. And the third driver was hired because they know that this person will not go and do risky things with our car. So today, as a disciple, do you try to prove that you can play stunts? You can do stunts. Because true wisdom requires that all of us that will begin to realign our path entirely. We begin to change our digital habits, the things that you expose yourself to on the internet, or it might even be your corporate association, how you relate with people you work with or that work around you. It can even be your daily environment. You have to learn to eliminate what I call the proximity of temptation. The farther you are away from that, the better for you. For example, listen, I set a reminder on my calendar, digital calendar, to remind me when to renew, a month or 2 to renew my license, driver's license. The same thing I do for my internet, I do that for everything, because I know. Do you know what it means? I don't know about you. To drive around town knowing that your license has expired, either your vehicle license or your driver's license or your insurance. Which one is much more easier? To renew it, 5,000 naira or thereabouts for your vehicle license or your this thing, or to start to hide from police, start to memorize where police people are, and you start giving. The further away you are from that, the better for you. So today, let's affirm on this. Let all of us resolve. Tell yourself, I resolve to practice the discipline of radical distance. I resolve to practice discipline of radical distance. I'm going to actively move myself from any environment, from any media, from any connection that feeds my vulnerability. You are not strong. Then stay away. Because you're not strong. You have a problem with alcohol. Stay away. You have a problem with gambling. Stay away. You have a problem with spending without thinking. Then stay away. Don't carry your credit card, your card with you. Don't do that. Don't make promises. Get somebody. You have to create that distance. So let's pause a little. Let's pause and digest all that we just said. And as we are digesting it, I want you to ask yourself this question. What doorway, entrance, right? Escape routes or entrance. What doorway of compromise are you currently playing close to? What doorway of sin are you currently playing close to? And you are falsely assuming that you are strong enough to manage the heat. Think about it. Is it the doorway of financial embarrassment? Is it the doorway of sexual purity? Is it the doorway of relational compromise? You have to ask yourself, and you are there. You are right there at the door. Rather you walking away, you are playing. You are thinking, oh, I can't stand it. Finally, before we go, like today, I decided to use business words, business language to help us. I've used the word, invoice. I've used the word buying and selling. Those are economics. Now let us look at audits. Okay, let's look at how can the audit of the secret place. And and I found that in verse 21. And this chapter, closes with what I would call dismantling the illusion of the hidden compromise. You are compromising, but you don't tell us you are compromising. It's making it look. Let us dismantle it. In verse 21, it says, "For your ways are in full view of the Lord, and he examines your path." You know what? The Bible says that God knows what you are doing. So humanity today, we spend so much money. We spend so much energy. We are trying to keep our own moral shortcut hidden from everybody. If you are a car manufacturer, you want to make sure that you hide the failings of your car from your competitors. If you are people who are agents who rent houses out, they will not show you the bad part of the house. They will only show you the nice part, hoping that you're not going to see that the walls are, they are soaking up water. Water comes in. They use paint to cover it up. They do all of those things. They even fill up the surrounding. They do that. The moral shortcut, they hide it from their partners, they hide it from their board, they hide it from their community, hide it from relationship, so you can go ahead. So, but wisdom is reminding all of us that every transaction that we make, all our transaction is fully transparent. It is transparent, before the Supreme Court of heaven. So that today, people even get married and they hide things from their the spouse to be. They only find out after the marriage has happened. And sometimes those are very terrible things, horrible things. So what does this word do to us? The word compromise. The word compromise, what it does that it creates, it's like putting a hole in a bucket of water that you're carrying. What compromise does is that it creates a leak in your spiritual equity. Now that's another business language that I'm using. It creates a leak in your spiritual, your equity, your value system that you have. It's going to cause your strength to be given to other people. Bible says that your hard-earned wealth will end up in the house of somebody else. By the time they sue you, by the time they catch you, by the time you are found out, you will pay. So today, let's think about it. If compromise creates leaks in our spiritual equity that we have, how should we present ourselves? Because what we need today right now is purity. Purity is what ensures that your financial, your intellectual, your relational capital, that's your capital you have, is preserved for legacy, what you're going to give. Sometimes today, there are parents who cannot instruct their children in certain ways because they have dropped the ball. So you cannot transfer it. You cannot tell them this is what to do. Your life cannot be an example. And the young people are saying, oh, my parents don't have the example. So you can see that compromise will lead you into greater loss. And so as we think about that, I want us to begin to digest this conviction. And I want us to make a resolve today. Tell yourself, I resolve to live with an acute awareness of God's constant gaze. Can you imagine if God is looking at you, you will behave. When you enter a place, whether it's at an airport or a public place, and you notice that the city camera is there, you will behave. So today we need to resolve that we're going to live our life with that awareness, like God is actually gazing at us. We are going to begin to anchor our character in integrity that thrives in secret places. The things you do in the dark when people are not seeing you. Can you imagine if you realize that God is actually God said, I see everything you are doing. That's going to give you some godly fear. Remember, the fear of the Lord being of wisdom. Some honor, you honor God. As we conclude our class today, our call to action, all of us, is to set a boundary, or should I say, set boundaries, because it could be more than one. Set boundaries in any weak area of your life today. Any weak area. Do not leave this morning session just with some vague intention. Okay, you need to sit down. First of all, you need to identify. Okay, identify the exact area. Be it in your pattern of speech, the way you talk. Be it in your digital platform, online, something. Maybe the things you browse during the night or during time you are exhausted or whatever. It could be maybe an online business association. You know that this association I'm with this person, it's not going to go well. Or it could even be an emotional boundary. That I'm talking about that, boundary that maybe that is blurry. When something is blurry, it's like you draw a line, then you now squish it. You don't know where the line starts. You have some blurred line. You don't know where to start or where to stop. What I want us to do today is to erect a physical wall, something that is visible. That if that means for you to block a contact, you block it. You won't say, I'm not going to pick this person call. You know what that person is calling you for. The same way you do to what do you call it? A 419 call. A 419 call, you block it, right? You report and block it. That's what you should do to any. You know that this man, what he's looking for is sexual. This woman, what is after? You block that person. You install a filter. You cancel a membership subscription that you have. You create an explicit accountability check today. Tell somebody, please be watching me. Anytime you see me go this way, call me. That is what the writer of Proverbs Chapter 5 is saying. We need to be able to know one thing, that God will rescue you when you apply wisdom in what you are doing. Number two things you need to know. You need to know that if you lack wisdom, it's going to waste you. You are going to pay a horrible price. And number three, you need to know that God sees even when no man sees you at all. So this is where we're going to stop for lack of time, obviously. And from now on, the book of Proverbs is going to start hitting practical things. Today is just the beginning. By the time we go to chapter 6, you're going to see more. Chapter 7, you're going to see more. We're going to see more explicit description. Now, the opposite thing is, I would say, rather you wasting your life on a wayward woman, I would say you have to look at your own wife. I would say enjoy your own wife. And that's what it means, that it's a drink from your own cistern. Drink from your own. Don't go and be wasting your water somewhere else. Don't go and be spreading whatever. He said, let your own satisfy you. And that's what we need to look at today. And you need to begin to, maybe many of you need to seek counsel today. Why are you not satisfied by the things that you have? Sometimes it might be your own fault. Sometimes it might be the fault of this. And for men, and for women, or I don't know how to put it, men or women, many times, a lot of women, I have sat down with many men who, for one reason or the other, always come to say that their wives always withdraw affection from them at the slightest thing that happens. At the slightest thing, they withdraw their affection from them. Is it not interesting why, like, for example, side chicks don't make good wives, but good wives should make side chicks? In other words, wives should treat their husbands the way the side chicks treat the husband, because side chicks cannot make wives. That's why they don't get married. So somebody wants to be, oh, the person spoke to me in a way I wish my wife would talk, to talk to me, and I would listen to the person. The person listens to me. The person encourages me. It's a married man. And these were the things that he wishes the wife would do to him. But a side chick is always standby. But the wives. So in the same way too, husbands, you see, a husband would treat a wife like a side chick when a wife behaves like a side chick. Or today we call them the side hen or the home hen. For the fact you are married, that doesn't mean that that you cannot bring spark to your marriage. Some people immediately they give birth, everything is gone. All the romance is gone, whatever is gone, every single thing, and they leave the men starving. Or the men also need to take care of themselves. Need to be able to look at, what do I need to build my relationship that I have? Anyway, I apologize. I just went off that tangent there. Let us just close this session. I hope I'll be able to have another opportunity to be able to share some more. Let us go to time of feedback time. What do you guys think? Is there anything that I've said today that made sense or resonated with you? This time we'll share before we go to God in prayer. But this is a topic that I really wish that we can spend more time to discuss. I'm going to be looking at hands, if the hands are going up, and we're going to share. If not, we're just going to go to God in prayer.